Welcome everyone. I'm Joan Engebretson. I'm the managing editor at Telecompetitor. Thank you for joining us for the latest installment of our Broadband Innovator video series. I have with me today Ed Gassel, who is currently the product line manager for Viavi Solutions. Welcome, Ed.
Hello, Joan. Thank you.
So we're going to be talking with Ed today about the passive optical network, or PON Lifecycle. Why don't we start, Ed, with you telling us a little bit about your role at Viavi?
Sure. So I'm a product line manager, and I'm responsible for a group of what we call essential fiber instruments that are used, generally speaking, to test optical networks.
So network operators of all kinds are deploying fiber to the premises. Viavi talks about different life cycle phases for these networks. What are those life cycle phases, and what are the key testing issues in each phase?
So there's really three phases, life cycle phases, that we see to these passive optical networks. The first is the construction of the optical distribution network. The second is the installation and turn-up of the service over the last mile drop. And the third is the repair and maintenance of the services. So just generally speaking, what you would need to do is when you roll out an optical distribution network, you need to test and make sure that each segment of that has the loss and the other optical characteristics that you would expect of it. The second is when you actually connect homes up through the drop, you have to install the drop and test it and make sure that you're getting the right optical signals that you would expect and that you have the right service that the customer has purchased.
So what are some of the key considerations in ensuring that the optical distribution network is built and tested correctly and in an efficient manner?
What they would typically do is get from out to the optical line terminals. Sometimes those are in a central office, sometimes they're remote. So you may have that as well, where you have to get construction out to the OLT. But if we just think of from the optical line terminal out to the drop terminal, which is where you connect customers up, you're going to have passive devices in there, splitters. So they typically will build that in segments. So you have the feeder from the OLT to the splitter cabinets, and you will want to install it, measure it for loss. Then you typically would say install the fiber out to the drop terminal from the splitter cabinet, measure it for loss, connect everything up through your splitters, and check your entire end-to-end system for loss. And you may use an OTDR at that point to do that so that you can see any anomalies along the way.
Is that the only way a PON optical distribution network can be built? Are there alternative approaches or methods?
Yes, so one of that I described is really where the technician is using instruments, light sources, power meters, OTDRs, things of that nature. But the other way to do it would be using centralized testing with a remote fiber test system that would sit in the central office. And that system is able, by the technician remotely controlling it, be able to test out. So the technician, instead of using an instrument, is more using their smartphone, and the instrumentation sits somewhere else. So they are able to go and they're able to, tap on their smartphone and run a test out to a certain point. Then they build the next sequence, they test out to that, and they build the next sequence and test out to that. And so they're able to test as they go by not using an instrument that they carry around, but rather a remotely controlled test system.